And guess who it is? It's the guy from the movie theater. I actually hate on literally everything, but then they never actually tell you that half of it is gonna make you cry. To be completely honest, no, it's not good. And I feel like that's worse than in a horror movie. She has never done me. Oh, by the way, if you're new here, I do tend to spoil things. So if you don't want any spoilers, I don't know how to prevent that because I'll just suddenly spoil something. Sorry. So welcome back to the vlog. Welcome back to the book channel, everyone. We are going to finally get rid of 2023 forever by doing our last wrap-up of the year. Yay! Okay, let's begin. This is the last books of 2023. Starting off, August, I read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I actually loved Babel, which is why I decided to read her next book. And I actually did not like the main character at all because everything she said, I was like, girl, this is you could have just not published the book, okay? I did not really agree with a lot of the things that she did, but obviously, if you write a character that someone can disagree with everything about, but still want to finish the book, that's a really good book. So I gave that a 3-star. Originally, I gave it like a 1-star rating, and I was like, I actually read the book, and I actually knew what was going on, what was happening, and I did not like how the main character treated things, I don't actually remember the ending of the book, but I still liked it. Next, I read The Strength in Our Scars. This is like, I don't know if I have any screenshots, but maybe I'll just upload some screenshots on TikTok. But after, like, the Barbie movie, random pages from the book The Strength in Our Scars and What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish would be over my For You page nonstop. So I just had to read the book. And it's basically just, I don't know what, I would say it's maybe in the poetry genre, but a lot of, it's not really poems, I wouldn't say. I don't know how to categorize it. Let's see what it's categorized on Goodreads. Oh, it is poetry. Okay. It is a poetry book. I didn't really feel like a poetry book. I actually, in the past, I read poetry books to complete my Goodreads goal faster, and I didn't really, understand it as much, but this book, it was so good. I'm pretty sure I cried reading one of the things. I definitely took some screenshots or pictures of it, but I don't even remember, but it was good. I gave it a 4-star. I highly recommend if you feel really sentimental and you want to look at someone else's view on life through a poetry lens. I don't know. Next, I read Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. And if you all know me, you know that I have a wall. I'll show you. I'll show it. You see that wall? Do you see that pink sticky note in the middle? For those of you who have not read Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas yet, you should. You really should read that book. Because Pike Lawson, I know some people find the age gap weird, but be for real. He was such a gentleman. I don't care. He was such a gentleman. Because obviously she left because he didn't want to ruin his relationship with his son. When there literally wasn't even a relationship in the first place. That wall was created I started that wall with Pike Lawson on there, and then I started adding the other sticky notes. I should probably remove most of them, because sometimes I read them, and I'm like, who is that guy? And then I have to search him up, and I was like, oh, right, from that romance book. So I need to probably redo that, and that's, yeah. Actually, to be completely honest, whenever my dad or my mom walks in, I feel like they don't even notice that, because the pictures are so small, but, sometimes they walk in, and they know that this tapestry has been here for, literally years. It's been here since I was, 13, 14. I don't even remember. And it's just a random-ass white man. And they're like, who is that? And I'm just like, Bob Duncan. And they wouldn't know who he is because they weren't the ones. They'd never, supervised my sister and I when we watched TV shows when we were younger. But at least it was Good Luck Charlie and not something like the kids now are watching. Like Darman or whatever. I'm going off track. Please read Birthday Girl, okay? Please read Birthday. So basically, I'll just I think her name is, yes, the main character's name is Jordan, right? And it's her birthday, and it starts off with her getting off her night shift at her job at like midnight or something, and she's like a bartender at this club. I forgot what it was called. And then she goes to a movie theater, and she meets this guy, and it's Pike Lawson. And she doesn't know that her current boyfriend at that time has a dad named Pike Lawson. And basically, the night that her boyfriend was throwing her a surprise party, but they got lit too quickly and he forgot to pick her up, so she walked to the movie theater, and then she finds out that they got kicked out, and then he says, oh, my dad's gonna let us stay with him for a while before we can, save and do that. And guess who it is? It's the guy from the movie theater. And the thing is, I feel like at the start there was already some sort of chemistry between them, because like in the movie theater there was some sort of chemistry, and then all of that like had to go away because of her boyfriend, which I forgot his name because he doesn't really matter. I thought he was kind of a bitch because, number one, not only does he cheat on her, okay, this is major spoilers, okay, you know what, why am I saying spoilers? I already said there's a spoiler warning. Not only does he cheat on her the day that she meets Pike Lawson and on her birthday with a girl named April, like what the freak? I actually hate on literally everything. Sometimes it's hard to explain. Not only does he cheat on her birthday, but then also in his dad's pool with her. Yeah. And we stand like Gucci, Gucci, Louis. Very proud that they didn't do anything while she was still dating him. Oh, look at my socks. These are my crewmate socks. Sorry. They smell really bad, so I'm taking them off. Moving on. I loved Birthday Girl. Highly recommend if you like age gap romances. And I think I gave this a 5-star. Well, it would be weird if I was talking so much about it and then I gave it like a 2-star. I gave Birthday Girl 5 stars. Highly recommend. Okay, moving on. Then we read The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. So this is, I think, a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. Except The Testaments, it's kind of different. I listened to it on the audiobook first, I think, and then I read the book because my library had it, and it goes through different point of views. One of them is one of the handmaids that like had more power, I'd say. I don't remember her name. And then it's also this baby, this person who is like a very special person in the society, and she gets separated from like her adoptive parents and all that fun stuff. And it was Lydia. Her name was Lydia. That's the person with like power. So there's like different perspectives on it. I liked it a little. I liked it. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Margaret Atwood's just peak. Okay, next, moving on, we have The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Now, this is part of the Dreamland Billionaire series, and I don't know why, but I feel like people always hype up things so much, but then they never actually tell you that half of it is going to make you cry. Because I read The Fine Print while I was, like, do you guys remember when I went to that wisdom teeth appointment? Yeah, I, like, binge read that book, and it made me cry. So, there's that. This is how do I say it? It's like, I don't know how to describe the trope. The girl is dating her boss. And it's like casual at first, but then he realizes that he's been like taking it too far because it was only supposed to be casual, and he was like, I didn't want to play the dutiful boyfriend role, even though no one asked him to, and he still did. So there's that, and that made me cry, but then they got married, blah blah blah. Okay, moving on to September. So we start off with Talking to Strangers, What We Should Know About the People We Don't Know by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't understand why nonfiction books have the longest freaking titles ever. Like, at first I thought Talking to Strangers was just like a contemporary book, but no. It's a whole book about freaking how the way you interact with strangers can literally alter your entire life. One of the examples was this woman, right, who got pulled over. Basically, she got pulled over probably because she was black, to be completely honest. And then She had her whole life planned out. This white cop, I actually don't quote me on this because this is how I remembered it. This white cop arrests her and then she commits suicide in her jail cell. Unless that was a completely different thing, I feel like that, I don't know. I watched Cindy read it and then I was like, oh, let me read it, but I don't know. I feel like whenever I talk about books that I have a vague understanding of, it never like actually makes sense when I say it out loud, which is probably why I don't really like talking to people about the books that I read, because I'll just tell them the most exciting thing and then leave the parts that are like a gray area in my mind. You know, I don't know what I'm saying. Okay. I don't think I would recommend nonfiction books to anyone. Just read it if you want to read it, okay? There is not one nonfiction book I really like. You know what I mean? No hate. But I still read nonfiction books. It's just that I haven't found the one that I would feel like someone should read. You know. Okay, next. I read Twisted Games by Anna Huang, and it was so amazing. In one of my social classes, it was like a catch-up day, and it was only an hour-long class, and I read this, and I read the part where they were in the gazebo. Guys, anyone who really likes a good romance with smut,
bombastic,
but like good romance,
criminal offense,
read the Twisted series, okay? I'm on the last book, Twisted Lies. I'm on the last one, and I just want you to know that even if you didn't like the third book, even because I didn't like it that much, because the girl had to do something that she really didn't want to do, even though she could have obviously asked someone sooner. Even though I didn't like that part, I still moved on from it, okay? Next, the third book, Red, White, and Royal Blue. Now, sometimes when I read books, I will not even be reading. I'll just be looking at the words and I wouldn't be understanding anything. And this is a really big problem because sometimes I get obsessive over numbers. It's like this is like fine, but I feel like it's a psychological issue kind of. I used to just read books and then put that on my Goodreads thing, and this is like a really bad problem, but I feel like I'm kind of better at doing this now because I'm making myself read things slowly, and if I don't understand things, I'll make myself read it aloud. And last year, I was reading Red, White, and Royal Blue, and I said I finished it in an entire day, and I don't remember anything that happened. And then I reread it, and now I understand the hype. And I only did that because I wanted to read it before I watched the live action. I haven't watched the live action, and I don't think I'm going to in a long time because I don't make the time to watch movies or stuff as often as I make time for reading books, and that's a good thing in my books. I just realized I haven't been talking about the ratings I gave, but you know what? I don't really care anymore. So I feel like the ratings, it's just a rating. The way that I express my feelings is the way that you guys should, understand. The way that I talk about the books probably already express how I felt about them. And then I read Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. I was going to read this book when I was in my crazy book talk phase when I read 9 Colleen Hoover books.
Hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass.
During a span of like 4 months. And that was only to see if any of her books were good. I didn't like any of her books, guys. I didn't like any of the books enough for me to say a good thing about any of them. Because even if you put like a book like It Ends With Us, some people say that it's good. It's actually good. But to be completely honest, no, it's not good. It's not what you should be recommending people. If you hate someone, recommend them Coho. Do that. But please, do not ever recommend someone Colleen Hoover if you love them, okay? I was going to read Punk 57 during that, but I never did, and I'm very happy that I didn't do it then. And I think the only reason I decided to read Punk 57 is because I thought it was going to be like Birthday Girl, and it was nothing like it. Like, the way that Penelope Douglas wrote this book was completely different from Birthday Girl, because I felt an entirely different vibe. And I think it's a good thing, because the characters in Punk 57 are high school, immature, little children, because they're still like younger, Even though I think Misha is like 18 or something, but I don't know. He's still like a rebel or whatever. I was told by one of my sister's friends that it didn't give because it wasn't smutty enough. But given that book, I don't know how smutty a teenager's romance can get. You know? I did like it in some aspects, but I don't know what it is. Okay, I joke about being Joe Goldberg a lot, but that's only because I can find information on the World Wide Web. Because the internet gives you access to so many things, but not the Joe Goldberg part where you're breaking and entering and doing a little Twilight Edward Cullen thing, you know. I like to watch you sleep at night. Like, none of that. I don't really, that part makes me uncomfortable. I do joke about it a lot, and if it did happen to me, I probably would never tell anyone about it, and then regret it, and then be in an asylum, or a psych ward, like 4 months later, but I would never actually tell someone if that happened to me. One, because I'd probably like it at first because of the attention, and two, because it would mentally like drain me, and I don't think I'd ever want to talk about that if that happened to me. Anyway, this dude was so angry at her for how she is like the type of person that she would always make fun of in like their letters that they would exchange, and he stops writing to her even though he's like in love with her. I don't know if you can be in love with someone if you wanted to like treat them like that, but I guess he just has weird tendencies ever since his sister died, which is totally weird because I didn't even understand that. I had to keep googling it because I was like, when did she die? So I feel like the description of her dying in like the first couple chapters wasn't like the best, but then obviously by the end I knew already because I googled it like 17,000 times. Okay, moving on to October. I read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And I've been holding off this book for so many times because this was a victim of my speed reading era. And I tried to watch the movie because watching classical movies before reading classical books kind of helps because then you kind of understand what's going on. But I was listening to the audiobook and reading it at the same time. But if you read classical books slowly, you slowly start to understand what's happening. And then I read the audiobook of All the Light We Cannot See. I tried to read the book, like the physical book, but it didn't help because for some reason I kept like thinking about other things, even though the first 2 chapters was easy. But when the girl and her dad like moved to Paris, or like when her dad like left, I was kind of confused. So I moved to the audiobook. And then I read The Catcher in the Rye. I have a copy of The Catcher in the Rye now, so that's literally... Should I get it? Bad news, I can't find the copy. But I read The Catcher in the Rye, loved it. It's in one of my reading vlogs. Yeah. And then I read Normal People by Sally Rooney. Guys, you need to read this book. You really need to read this book, and don't mind how there's no quotations in it because you won't even think about it. You will literally just read the book, okay? I loved it. I haven't watched the live action. I haven't watched the live action of so many things, and I'm okay with that. And then I read Shadow Me by Tahira Mafi, and this is just like another novella. I think it was in Kenji's perspective. I don't actually remember, but I read it. And then A Thousand Boy Kisses ruined it. There was a reading vlog on it, so you guys probably know if you guys catch up with me, but A Thousand Boy Kisses killed me. It ruined me. And you know the weirdest thing about it is that it still did this to me. It still made me cry whilst it was on audiobook. How does that happen? I guess I'm just an empath. Anyway, highly recommend A Thousand Boy Kisses. The sequel to this is coming out sometime this year, and I'm very excited for it, but I don't know how you can have a sequel to this book. I'm not going to spoil why you can't have a sequel, but there you go. It's giving Me Before You core. That's what it's giving. So, I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, then November, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm going to have to reread this book. It did not make that much sense to me, so I'm going to have to reread it. I don't know when I'm going to reread it, but I have a copy of it, so I will reread it sometime. I listened to the audiobook of A Perfect Stranger. I thought this was just going to fly past my head, but it was actually it was very good. I kept going back and forth between this audiobook and probably some other audiobook because in the beginning I didn't know there was a dual perspective because they were both women. But yes, there's a dual perspective in this book. Very good. It's a good thriller. The descriptions are kind of gory, but I wouldn't say too gory to the point where you'd be nauseous. It was good. Whenever you read thriller books or horror books, I feel like it's worse because when you read the descriptions of what's happening during like a gory scene, your mind will draw the picture for you, and I feel like that's worse than in a horror movie, because a horror movie, usually what's scary about it is the jump scares and the sound effects, and unless you're listening to a dramatized version of an audiobook, I don't think that you can be really jump scared. You can be like chilled out, you can be unsettled, but it just evokes a better feeling, than if you just watched a horror thriller thing. I hope that makes sense. Let's move on. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I was never a very big Hunger Games fan, and yeah, I don't know. I was never a very big Hunger Games fan, so this wasn't the best book. It's obviously a villain origin story, but Snow, he was literally none of that. Everyone says he's hot, but come on, he still killed people. I don't know. I'd say it's mid. I'm saying it's mid. And then I listened to Still Hung Up on You, and this is like a second chance at romance. It's on Audible Originals. The entire time, they were just calling each other and things like that. And then I read I listened to The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, and I absolutely took away nothing from that. It's just the same old psychological tricks to make people find you interesting. I don't remember anything from that book. I think I should stop reading nonfiction books because the only time I retain like scientific facts or stuff like that is when they just randomly pop up inside fiction books. And I think I just prefer those better. And then I listened to the audiobook of Hooked by Emily. Yeah. It's just reading audiobooks. They're just so funny. It's a dark romance book, I think. And it's a series. And I plan on actually finishing the series because reading a dark romance book, it just gives you a little chuckle because I don't find most of the things in a dark romance book attractive. I just find them insane, but funny at the same time, if you know what I mean. And then December, the month that I read so many children's books thinking it would help me reach my goal of 150 books. I did not reach my goal, by the way. I read 102 books, including the children's books, but I definitely read 90 books, or less than 90 books, without including the children's books, because I read, I think, a couple of children's books earlier in the year. We're going to start off with Before We Are Strangers. I recommend this book. I recommend this book. I don't know the feeling of being in a relationship with someone who's a photographer, but like to be loved by a photographer. To be loved by a photographer. Oh my God. That photography session when he took photos of her and Lover, You Should Have Come Over played, I knew for a fact it would never be over for them. And I was correct because it was a romance book. And I don't know what the title correlates with it, Before We Were Strangers, because they were strangers for literally like 3 seconds before they were friends. Anyway, moving on. Anne of Green Gables. I didn't know that this was a series. I thought that Anne with an E. I thought after like the first season that the producers were just like writing random things, but I think it follows the freaking book series. And I never knew that. I listened to Anne of Green Gables on audiobook. And the amount of times Anne would say Gilbert and then say people at school, I don't even know how many times. I don't know why my nose is so stuffy. And then I read Twisted Hate. Jules and Josh. This is for people who really like smutty enemies to lovers, okay? I wouldn't say this was the best one. Mainly because there was betrayal and all that. It also didn't make me cry because I was reading it in public. So there's that. But then again, Twisted Games almost made me cry in public. So maybe I just didn't like it. And then I read Define Me by Tahira Mafi. I thought I was going to finish the Shatter Me series last year. In 2023, but I did. So I'm gonna try to finish it this month or this week. Let's move on. I'm gonna skip the children's books because I don't want to talk about them. And then I read The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, and oh my god, I've talked about this before, but she has never done me. There's no smut like ever, but still, it makes you tune into the romance more, and I love that. I really love it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just like how I read that other book that I mentioned in my other reading vlog, The Winter Garden. That needed smut. Okay, and then I read after The Bodyguard, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien on audiobook because I would have had to read everything out loud, and I didn't want to do that, so I finished most of it on. My apologies. I would have had to read all of it out loud, and I didn't want to do that. And then the last book of 2023, Nora Goes Off Script. I thought I would have hated this book because of the small things that the author wrote that was supposed to give the main character personality, but it honestly just icked me out. And then at the end, you find out that her son was the cause of her heartbreak. So there's that. And I didn't really I thought that was kind of weird. So on Goodreads, I said, this is why I don't like kids. This is why you shouldn't add kids, because literally, no. That's the end of this wrap up. And who knows what I'll do my next wrap up, because as you can tell, I literally don't make wrap ups as often as I should. But there's your wrap up for the next. Yeah, there's your wrap up. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all on the next video. Goodbye!